Do you think that ghosts are benevolent or not?
I personally believe, but I've had experiences to make me believe. When I started doing this, I didn't believe at all. I was a hardcore skeptic. It just took a slap across the face, quite literally, to make that happen. But yes, now I certainly do believe.
So you were actually accosted by a spirit.
Yeah, I'm not going to say spirit for sure, but I have no other explanation for what happened to me.
Right. Because I've seen some shows where there's I don't know who the gentleman is, but he's I guess a ghost hunter, but he tends to really egg spirits on, even if they're bad spirits or not, and he kind of does it on purpose. And I always think there's going to be a show where he does that, and then all his flesh is ripped off instantly, and like the camera guys just start running, and he's crying like a child in the fetal position, like on the ground while dirt's getting on his like tender skin.
If that would happen, it'd be so cool.
That would be very cool.
Really cool.
I mean, that would be like the best show we ever did.
Oh yeah.
So are you saying you don't like to coax? Spirits that way?
In certain situations, I have provoked. It's not a common practice we try to use. We try to be as respectful as possible. But in certain locations, for instance, if I was investigating an old abandoned state penitentiary or something, I might be a little more aggressive. There's more chance of getting a response that way. Nobody's living there, so I ain't going to be leaving anything in dismay.
Right. Was it because, if it was like a penitentiary, is it because the spirits or entities that are there are used to that kind of authoritative approach?
Quite possibly either that, or it might just piss them off. If it pisses them off, they might want to try to react, and that's what we want to try to document and capture.
But you've only been physically, I don't want to say hurt or harmed, but you've been physically touched once?
This was a situation where it felt like 40 grit sandpaper was smacked against the side of my face, and it left me in a state of shock for a good 20 minutes or so, and I don't recollect the entire occasion, but it was a pretty traumatic experience. It's extremely, extremely rare. I want to stress it. It's extremely rare that anything ever is negative or happens like that. Very, very rare. But me being as skeptical as I was, everything that was ever brought to my attention, I always kind of just dismissed or came up with an explanation for. So something really traumatic would have to happen to make me believe, and that's pretty much what happened there.
Well, looking back on, like you said, because I know there are a lot of skeptics out there and that sort of thing, can you look back when you were a skeptic, and do you have a formula for why you were skeptical? Do you know, was it because you were afraid of something? Was it because you didn't understand something?
Quite frankly, until you have an experience, it's hard to grasp the concept that something's out there. You're always thinking of answers. Even whenever you do believe, something happens, you're like, could have been this. It's just going through your head, whether you express it or not. For me, I still take a skeptical approach every time I go anywhere. I try to.
But that's a healthy skepticism for your hunting.
Oh yes, it's a needed formula, to be honest with you. And you kind of have a variety of people you work with that have different beliefs. Some are going to be really, really, believers, and others are going to be a little more skeptical. And you take those things. Is that your phone?
It's my phone. Hold on a second.
There's a paranormal event, the unexplained, that occurs. A ghost, well, that's defined by the person who experiences it. And there are dozens of ways that I can come up with where I can make you think that you're having a paranormal experience. You're the person that applies the word ghost to it. So, are people mistaken a lot of times? Yeah, most of the time, in fact, they are mistaken. But, that 1,000th of a time where it's an actual paranormal event, it's pretty phenomenal. I try to keep up on the science as best I can. As far as all the equipment that you've seen on TV, our team goes ahead and uses all that. But we also use spiritual methods. We use psychics, that sort of thing. And I got to tell you, I'm the first guy to try to go ahead and make any psychic look foolish. And 99% of the time, they're charlatans. They're bunk. 1% of the time, they're astonishing. Now, let's bring the idea motor response over to the Ouija board, as far as what's making the Ouija board move. There are some people that are so submissive that they are waiting for whatever influence to overcome them. And I'm thinking you put a couple of those together, you put a couple of people, not the people who were stopping other people from swinging the pendulum, the ones that were stopped. These people probably will be sitting there waiting for the other person to move the planchette. And if both parties are doing that, then it's probably more likely they're getting, a move, the influence from something else. And when we're talking about ghostly influence, we're talking not a lot. Ghosts have been clocked at about 8 to 12 pounds of force. That's what the research, that's what all like examples have shown. It can float a book across the room, it can push something off a shelf, but it's not all that impressive. Okay? If you're using a Ouija board properly, it's a subtle machine. And, pardon me, this can affect what you're going to be doing. So if there are in fact ghosts and they don't have a lot of power to play with, little nudges, if you're using the Ouija board properly, should be able to influence that. I mean, everybody puts it on a table. Everybody goes ahead and tries to communicate that way, ham-handed, it resting on a table. What's going to be able to move the planchette at that point? Well, something powerful, something that's not a ghost. When a Ouija board is actually in use, you face the person, you balance it on your laps, you put a piece of silver on the board to keep it clean. I mean, that's some of the mythos, the theory behind it. And, think about that. You're sitting at the table for an hour and a half. You're balancing this board. You're wondering, it's like, wow, are my thighs getting too sweaty for them to be against this other person's thighs? You're balancing the piece of silver on it. It's precarious. And I think that the entities, I don't know if I want to call them ghosts or not, but whatever else is sharing the planet with us, they have the energy to go ahead and manipulate something that, that subtle. Just got to find the right people to do it. And the preliminary experiments are fascinating. I mean, they really are. I want to debunk them. I really do. But as of yet, I can't. I don't have the expertise. But I'm using the science to try to figure out exactly why it works. And yeah, I'm trying to take whatever scientific modes I can to debunk it, because I don't know, deep down inside I'm hoping that one day I can get a skeptic to believe, but I'm not going to hold my breath. So, and plus I'm a smoker, holding my breath just never works out.
That makes sense. I would like to not become a skeptic. I think it'd be fascinating. Of course, I would prefer to have a family member come visit me than to
That would be cool.
have some evil essence. Are there like a difference between the evil and good? Like, can you have?
Oh yeah.
Okay. What have you experienced that hasn't been so nice?
Willy, you guys interviewed him earlier.
Yeah.
He's been hit while on an investigation. I've been shoved. I've had something more recently that things follow you home. They just do. But sometimes things last a little bit longer than you expect them to. And the thing that has been sharing my space with me over the last few months is it likes to flip my eyelids inside out while I sleep. It gives a presence that it is in the in the house as well. But it hasn't done anything worse than like a college roommate has done. So it's not really all that much of a pain in the ass, and it's pretty interesting to observe as well. But like all things, it eventually fades. This one's holding on for a bit longer than they normally do, but that's part of the payback. It's what they never talk about on the TV shows, is that you do get followed home. Things do latch on. Things do, they're sitting in the car with you when you're coming home, and they, yeah.
But born and blind.
I need an adult.